I'm sure many of you have asked yourselves this question at one point in your lives. How did everything begin? Some of you might know where you were when you asked this question for the first time. We'll start with the gods of Greece, Egypt, the Jews and Christians, Hindus and Norsemen, before moving on to our best current scientific theories. Ready? Let's dive right in. In the beginning, there was nothing but primeval waters called none. We are all familiar with the story told in Genesis, even if you don't subscribe to any Abrahamic religions. And God made the expanse and divided the waters which were under the expanse from the waters which were above the expanse. And it was so. God called the expanse heaven. Long ago, in the beginning, there was a supreme spirit known as Brahman, who was infinite in wisdom, knowledge, and power. Once upon a time, there was a void that stretched endlessly in all directions. But before we do that, hit that thumbs up button if you enjoyed learning about the ancient myth. You've probably heard that joke before, but if you're paying attention, you've also probably noticed that it's not exactly true. The universe didn't just suddenly burst into existence fully formed and ready to rock and roll. The first single-celled organisms appeared in the oceans about 3.5 billion years ago. And from there, life gradually evolved into larger and more complex forms until finally, about 300,000 years ago, the first humans appeared. And in the Judeo-Christian tradition, creation myths have served as a way to teach people about their relationship with the divine. Genesis, for instance, teaches readers that the world was created by God for the purpose of being inhabited by humanity, placing humans at the center of creation. In other creation myths, however, humanity appears much lower on the totem pole, sometimes even absent altogether. And here we are. Instead of attempting to find a meaning for the creation of the universe, it seeks to discover a mechanism, a how. Science does not claim to answer the ultimate question of why we are here. Rather, it merely attempts to explain how things came to be the way they are. No, it took billions of years for things to get here. Humans have always asked themselves, who are we, and how did we come to be? And both myths and science attempt to answer that question. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. And remember to hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Until next time, ask yourself, are we born of chaos or stardust? And let us know what you believe, myth, science, or something in between. Sometimes they tell the same story, as with the Big Bang Theory, which some scientists believe explains the creation of the universe, or the biblical account of creation, which tells of the world being created in 6 days. Other times, they tell very different stories. The difference between myth and science is really a difference in perspective. Myths offer an explanation for the why of human existence. Science offers an explanation for the how. One gives meaning, the other gives mechanism. One is faith-based, the other evidence-based. Yet, both seek to answer the same ultimate questions. They all posit a beginning for the universe, for reality as we know it. They begin with a state of nothingness, a void, which then gives way to order. They describe a beginning in which darkness held sway, which then gives way to light. In other words, they all begin with chaos and end with enlightenment, at least in Judeo-Christian terms. They also share a commonality in their narrative structure. They all feature a creator god or gods who decide to create the world out of nothing or out of chaos. Here, and here, and then here, and then here. So let's take a look at how it happened. And while you're at it, why not subscribe so you never miss an episode? And time and energy, which sounds impossible. But hey, science is pretty cool like that. This tiny point, called a singularity, exploded outward in an event known as the Big Bang. In the first few seconds after the Big Bang, the universe was unimaginably hot and dense. Energy particles were flying around everywhere, colliding and splitting into smaller particles. As the universe began to expand and cool, subatomic particles known as protons and neutrons joined together to form atomic nuclei, which combined with electrons to form the first atoms, mostly hydrogen and helium. Gravity caused these atoms to coalesce into gas clouds, which eventually formed into stars and galaxies. Within a few 100 million years, our solar system formed when a star near the size of our sun collapsed and exploded as a supernova. The shockwave from the explosion pushed a clump of dust and gas together, and over millions of years, that clump turned into our sun and the rocky planets orbiting it, including Earth. And in this void, there were two powerful forces, ice and fire. Eventually, these forces met and melted, forming a giant called Ymir. Giants, by the way, are generally good guys in Norse mythology. Ymir drifted about in the void until he discovered some earth, which he used to fashion a place for himself to live. While Ymir was busy settling into his new home, some gods arrived. Seeing the giant, they knew he was too big and strong for anyone to defeat in battle, and so instead, they did something even more devious. They slaughtered Ymir's ox, smeared his blood on some nearby bushes and put his bones in the ground. Using his flesh, they formed mountains and valleys, and once finished, they used Ymir's skull to form the heavens. With the world now fully formed, the gods moved in and settled down to rule over the mortals below. This spirit was also unborn and eternal, possessing no distinct individuality and existing beyond human perception. Brahman was also totally alone, which caused it a great deal of sorrow, and so, to escape its loneliness, it surrendered itself to the laws of nature and created the creator god, Brahma. Brahma then set about the task of creating the universe, which he did by causing the potential energy dormant in himself to manifest outwardly as the cosmos. As the universe expanded, Brahma breathed life into the myriad living beings populating it, and so the universe continued until it reached its final stage of decline and destruction, at which point it was reborn again, restarting the cycle anew. And thus the process continues into eternity. And there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. Then God said, "Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the gathering of the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the earth bring forth vegetation, plants yielding seed and fruit trees, bearing fruit according to their kinds, each bearing seed within its fruit." And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit, each bearing seed within its fruit. And God saw that it was very good. Then God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and to be signs and seasons, to distinguish the days of the year, the feast of the Passover, the feast of unleavened bread, the feast of first fruits, and the feast of Shavuot, to divide the day from the night. Let them be for signs, seasons, years, days, and for feasts." Then God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and a lesser light to govern the night. And he put them in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night. And God said, "Let the waters under the heavens run together into one place, from which man may part the land, that the earth may bring forth vegetation, plants, yielding seed, trees, yielding fruit according to their kinds, all in the earth yielding after its kind, all that yields living offspring." And it was so. God made the great sea, and saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and the birds of the heavens, and the livestock, and all the earth, and everything that moves on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female he created them. Then God blessed them. And God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and everything that moves on the earth." And God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were created, completed in 6 days. And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. Therefore God blessed the seventh day, and sanctified it, because in it he had rested from all his work which he had done in making the heavens and the earth and all things that are in them. These are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created in their kinds. When God made the earth and created it, when he established it, made it an inhabited earth, and God said, "Let us go down in history." On that day, it is a cornerstone of Western culture, and so without any further ado, let's jump into it. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form, void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and called the darkness night. And there was evening, and there was morning. None was without form or shape and existed beyond the comprehension of the gods. One day, however, a god emerged from none who would become known as Ra. Seeing the world as it was, Ra decided he was rather lonely, and so he created air personified as Shu and moisture personified as Tefnut. Ra then ordered Shu and Tefnut to mate, which they did, creating the earth and the sky. With the world now complete, Ra was happy to finally have company, and everything was good. And others might not remember asking it at all, but ask it, we do, humans. Because we are inherently curious creatures by nature, and since there was no one around to answer our question when we were still but a twinkle in our eyes, we grew up with stories that attempted to explain how our existence came to be. Now, these stories are known as creation myths, and they vary greatly from culture to culture. So today we decided to do a little myth-busting of our own and explore some of the most popular creation myths out there and see how they hold up to modern scientific discovery. Welcome to In the Beginning. We will explore the ancient myths about the origin of the universe and compare them to modern scientific understanding of how the world began. We will be looking at 4 creation myths today, each from a different culture, and then comparing those to modern theories. But before we get into those, let's talk about how we got our hands on these myths. Since these tales are so old, written records are often our only source of these stories, which can make tracking their origins and meanings difficult. For example, the Egyptian creation myth we are telling here comes to us from the Second Dynasty. It is therefore very likely that its original spoken form had been passed down for centuries before being recorded. And what's more, our record of it is mediated by Greco-Egyptian writers, further blurring the lines of translation and interpretation. That said, thanks to thousands of years of scholarship and analysis by historians, linguists, and anthropologists, we have a pretty good idea of how to read these myths and what they originally meant to their creators. So let's get into the first myth, ancient Egyptian mythology. Next, we travel to the Judeo-Christian creation myth. Then God said, "Let there be an expanse made between the waters to divide the waters from the waters." Our next myth takes us to India, home of Hinduism and its cyclical creation myth. Last but not least, we fly over to Scandinavia to meet the Norsemen and their creation myth. Now that we've heard some of the most common creation myths from various cultures, let's move on to our last creation story, which is science's attempt to explain how the universe began. Part 2. Scientific Cosmogony, Beta Bing, Beta Boom. About 13.8 billion years ago, our universe began as an infinitely small point that contained all of space on early Earth. Complex molecules formed and interacted, eventually giving rise to the first self-replicating molecule, RNA, which evolved into DNA. Part 3. Comparison and Reflection. All the myths share certain commonalities. Myths and religious texts have always been the main way humans have sought to understand their existence. Modern science, on the other hand, offers a very different approach. That said, both myths and science attempt to answer the same existential questions, and so we arrive at the end of another episode. Thank you for watching.